When Manchester United brought in Michael Carrick, the club was going through a difficult phase. Results were poor, confidence was low, and uncertainty surrounded the team. In that moment of crisis, they made a bold choice to trust one of their own and hand the responsibility to a man who truly understands the club.
Last weekend, can Pep Guardiola's side bring that level of ruthlessness to Old Trafford today? 4 years, 1 month and 15 days.
It's a formula that has often worked for Manchester United turned to someone from within. A caretaker manager who understands the club, a former player, sometimes even a legend. But with Michael Carrick, it feels different. In just 90 minutes, he gave Old Trafford fans something they had been craving for years. A team that actually looks like the Manchester United they once believed in. This isn't just hype. It's the story of how one moment of belief can echo for years. How a single smart adjustment can fix problems that dragged on for months. Choosing someone who truly understands what it means to play for the badge almost always brings a spark. And this is the story of how Michael Carrick might be saving Manchester United once again. What makes it even more surprising is that Carrick wasn't even the club's first choice. Ruben Amorim's sacking came as a shock. When United brought the Portuguese manager back in 2024, it seemed like a long-term project. Even when results dipped, the club stood by him. Even when he sidelined big names like Marcus Rashford, Antony, Jadon Sancho, and Kobbie Mainoo, a group later dubbed the Bomb Squad, United continued to back him. But as the new year began, everything changed. Amorim gave a controversial interview that sent shockwaves through the club, leaving Manchester United with no option but to act
of Manchester United, not to be the coach of Manchester United. And that is clear. I know that my name is not Tuchel, is not Conte, is not Mourinho, but I'm the manager of Manchester United. And it's going to be like this for 18 months or...
After Amorim publicly criticized the club's owners and its internal culture, the reaction was immediate. Manchester United acted quickly, sacking him just hours later. But the decision left the club in a complicated situation. They had backed Amorim for months, so removing him mid-season meant they now had to either begin a fresh search for a long-term manager or hand temporary control to someone already inside the club. Initially, the responsibility fell to Darren Fletcher, however. After just one game under his charge, it was clear that nothing had really changed. The same issues remained, and the same uncertainty surrounded the team. Behind the scenes, United had already started planning their next move. The idea was simple: bring back a familiar face who understood the club's identity. For several days, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer emerged as the leading candidate to take over as interim manager. His first spell back in 2018 had worked wonders. He inherited a fractured dressing room from Jose Mourinho and quickly restored belief, guiding United back to playing attacking, free-flowing football. It felt like a logical choice to turn to him once again. But despite all the speculation, United board ultimately decided against bringing Ole back. Instead, they chose another former United midfielder, another club legend. After internal discussions, Michael Carrick's appointment didn't exactly feel like a headline-grabbing decision. It wasn't dramatic or flashy. In fact, it was surprisingly quiet. Yet maybe that was precisely what Manchester United needed. After years of chasing big-name managerial appointments and making bold, high-pressure decisions, the club needed calmness. They needed someone steady. Most importantly, they needed someone who truly understands what Manchester United is all about.
You know, I know a lot about the club. It has changed a little bit since I left, but I think in some ways that's a good thing. You know, the freshness and I think that was important with the staff and to be strong. And
according to inside sources, key breakfast meeting between United's director of football, Jason Wilcox, CEO Omar Barada, and legendary former manager Sir Alex Ferguson ultimately set the tone for Michael Carrick's appointment. What they wanted above all was a coach first and foremost, someone who understood tactics deeply, but who also had the flexibility to adjust when the situation demanded it. That, in many ways, had been the issue with Amorim. A club needed a manager who didn't rely purely on emotion, but who could use it as fuel and channel it into structure and discipline on the pitch. Even with Carrick chosen, though plenty of questions remained. Could he really coach Manchester United at the highest level? His only senior managerial experience outside the club had been with Middlesbrough. He did an impressive job when he first arrived in 2022, taking a side, flirting with relegation and pushing them all the way to a playoff decider the following season. He also helped develop players like Morgan Rogers, now shining at Aston Villa. But after that early progress, results plateaued and Middlesbrough didn't look like genuine contenders for Premier League promotion. Naturally, the idea of appointing him raised eyebrows. Still, for United, this was a calculated risk, a safety net. Carrick was brought in on an interim basis until the end of the season. If things didn't work out, the club could simply restart their search for a permanent manager. But in the short term, that wasn't the focus. Carrick's immediate task was clear: steer Manchester United away from the danger they were drifting toward. His first match in charge could hardly have been more daunting: a Manchester derby against City. It was the kind of fixture that could unsettle even the most experienced manager, especially considering City had comfortably won the previous meeting at the Etihad 3-0 just months earlier. Yet there was one crucial detail that hadn't been mentioned enough. This wasn't Michael Carrick's first time stepping into the Manchester United job.
We are playing against. Well, we've seen Carrick on the touchline under Jose Mourinho and Solskjaer. He revealed he was encouraged by Solskjaer to shout instructions to players if he'd observed something important.
In 2022, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was sacked, Michael Carrick, who is part of his coaching staff, stepped up to take temporary charge of the first team he managed 3 games before Ralf Rangnick was appointed and remarkably remained unbeaten in that short spell, even securing a memorable 3-2 win over Arsenal. But this time around, the challenge was far bigger. Manchester City were a different level entirely, especially after strengthening their squad with informed players like Antoine Semenyo, who had made an immediate impact. All eyes were on Manchester on January 17th as Carrick led United into the derby. He had played in this fixture many times before, winning it 17 times as a player, but standing in the dugout as the manager was a completely different experience. There was no middle ground here. It could either be a perfect start or a complete disaster. Yet from the very first whistle, it was clear that this wasn't the same Manchester United fans had watched all season. Something had changed. Michael Carrick had arrived. The biggest difference was the formation. Amorim's 3-4-2-1 system was scrapped instantly. Carrick switched to a traditional back four, pairing Harry Maguire with Lisandro Martinez at center back, with Diogo Dalot and Luke Shaw operating as fullbacks. In midfield, Kobbie Mainoo was finally given freedom again, making his first start since May and partnering Casemiro in a double pivot. Bruno Fernandes played in an advanced playmaking role behind a front three of Amad Diallo on the right, Patrick Dorgu on the left, and Brian Mbeumo leading the line. Within the first 25 minutes, both United fullbacks had already been booked, and Dalot was lucky not to be sent off after a tough challenge on Jeremy Doku. But the key takeaway was the intensity. United looked sharper, hungrier, and far more organized than they had under Amorim. The system was working, and suddenly United were the more dangerous side. By full time, they had secured a 2-0 victory, though the scoreline barely reflected their dominance. They hit the bar twice, had 2 goals ruled out for offside, and forced City goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma into several incredible saves, all while having just 32% possession. Carrick's tactical setup was outstanding. On paper, United lined up in a 4-2-3-1. But without the ball, it often shifted into a compact 4-4-2 shape, designed to stay solid and deny City any real attacking routes. City dominated possession with 68%, but much of it was harmless. United forced them into slow, predictable circulation without clear chances. The wingers, Ahmed and Dorgu, worked tirelessly tracking back, ensuring United always had defensive cover on both flanks whenever City tried to stretch play. Going forward, Carrick's plan was equally sharp. As a former midfielder, he seemed to recognize that Rodri was the key to City's rhythm. Mainoo and Casemiro stayed close to him throughout, pressing aggressively and cutting off passing lanes. It disrupted City's flow completely. Mainoo in particular was sensational, controlling the tempo, breaking up play, and driving United forward. Watching him perform like that raised serious questions about why he had been sidelined under Amorim in the first place. Carrick also got his substitutions spot on. Bryan Mbeumo had been excellent, scoring the opener and contributing heavily to the press. But Carrick replaced him with Matheus Cunha to maintain energy and creativity. The tempo didn't drop at all. Cunha immediately made an impact, delivering a low cross that Patrick Dorgu converted for United's second goal. He nearly had another assist late on after setting up Mason Mount, only for the goal to be ruled out for offside. More than just a win, Carrick restored belief. He brought structure, identity, and energy back to the team. Old Trafford finally felt alive again. The most remarkable part was that he did it with the exact same squad Amorim had. No new signings, no major changes, just a clearer plan and smarter execution.